2035 comp plan, and it says it twice. It says create a mixed-use policy. That is it. And I read the entire plan. So we are looking at doing that, possibly. I wanted to indicate that the 2040 comp plan will be started in the fall of this year. So if we want to do something in that comprehensive plan, we will be able to, since we'll be starting that process again in the fall. So what staff looked at this time around is we thought maybe we would just go a little simpler and possibly in the NX, the neighborhood mixed use, and the CX, require a minimum of 2 building types used within the development, one of which must be a commercial building type unless the mixed use building type is used. So if the mixed use building type is used, that would require somebody to have commercial, retail or office on the ground floor, residential on the top floor. If they don't use that building type and they want to have townhomes, then they would also have to have a single-story shop front or another commercial building type. And we thought placing them in the NX and CX might be the best locations for those. We also thought then to remove the townhouse building type from the CH commercial heavy zoning district, and that zoning district is up Alpharetta Highway. It is possible we could try to move it out of another classification if you wanted to do so, but we felt we'll start small and see where you wanted to go, and consider doing that. If we did that, we would have to remove the townhouse use in the Article 4 out of the CH zoning classification. So we wouldn't indicate that townhouses would be an allowed use in commercial heavy. That is what we decided to come up with. We wanted to get rid of the percentages because we saw that the percentages weren't going anywhere. And we also know with the marketplace, it's difficult to do the percentages. But since we also talked about thinking with the comp plan coming up in the fall and possibly really gearing up and putting something in the comp plan this time around regarding mixed use, we felt this might be, I'm not sure if you want to say assistance or something to indicate this is what we think we can do between now and getting the comp plan adopted. But this would just limit or remove, like I said, get rid of the townhouse use in this commercial heavy. If you wanted to take it out of another commercial zoning district, we could. And then requiring a minimum of 2 building types in neighborhood mixed use and commercial mixed use. The mixed use developments seem to be really going in the CX for the most part. And that's what we have.
I will say that CH is probably the most, other than maybe industrial, but maybe not, the most intense zoning district. Is where you have more of your heavier use. More you remove from it, the less flexibility that you would have. The good thing about looking at this as an overall part of the comp plan, depending on, I don't have to say this, the funding and the scope of work, which the funding determines the scope of work, then you can do more market analysis for basically the corridors or those areas where you know you want to focus some type of redevelopment to see what is reasonable in those areas. But although we start the comp plan next year, it's done like
we start in the fall.
21?
Technically, we have to be adopted by 21.
October 21.
So
actually, it has to be done more like June of 21 because you have to send it to the state for the state to certify.
Questions?
Are we, Bob, maybe this is for you, are we allowed to actually just remove townhouse from a use chart without it? Are there legal issues associated with that?
Unless someone has availed themselves of that, don't have a vested right. They're in the process, already applied, yes, right. Just because there's something haven't availed yourself of it, you're not entitled.
Okay.
There's a misunderstanding of that.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Are there properties within that zoning district right now that have townhomes?
Most of those do not.
Those car dealerships.
Most of them car dealerships. I don't think there are any, but I can check into that. But I don't even know if we've have anybody looking at those, and that's why I think we picked that one. Residential wasn't actually allowed in CH for quite a while. There was a ordinance, I think, right before we changed the UDC that allowed some residential in CH, but it was never really taken advantage of because it is the intent. You have car dealerships, you have auto repair. That's where you can do most of your really intense commercial work. So somebody didn't really want to put residential in those areas.
And I think there was probably some thought that maybe at some point in time the car dealerships would turn over. But thankfully in Roswell, most of the dealerships that we have are pretty top line dealerships.
I think the first part makes sense. I've been trying for the last couple of days to think about what kind of development you would get with two different types of buildings, and it seems that, as I dream through that, it seems to make sense. One of the things that concerned me a little bit about the second part is one of the things that we like about the Skillet proposal from S.J. Collins is that they broke it up a little bit with one small row of town. And I think this is anticipating a whole townhome development, right? And that I understand the
Yes.
concern about that, because that doesn't, that doesn't necessarily belong in that place. But would we be restricting that breaking up of sort of that monolith?
They could give a variant. We could give a variance to it, correct?
If the use is not allowed,
Well, or you could possibly, Bob, say that the use townhome residential use is allowed as part of a actual mixed use development and not as a standalone. With that,
I think that, isn't that what you were trying to say, really? Is you didn't want a whole townhome development?
yes, we don't want a whole
No.
townhouse development in here. So if we took out the building type, you do that. Now, if you want to if you don't want to go that route and you want to say require a minimum of 2 different building types in all of these commercial zoning classifications, we can do that also.
I think it made sense what you just said about if it's part of a mixed use plan, but then you get into what percentage of them is there one?
That's been our dilemma.
So that would be my only concern about that, is they'd have to come in for a variance to do the one strip.
You could be a car dealership, and what do those average? 11 to 28?
Probably think about 10.
So you've got a car dealership, and you decide to put a gas station on an out parcel, and then the rest townhouse.
Yeah, that's the concern.
Mm-hmm.
On the other side, flip that around. One of the things, again, we liked about Skillet was it had that one row to kind of break up the pattern. So that's what you'd give up. That's what I've been thinking about on this one. So in general, I don't know that I have an issue with it. It just just know that that's what you're giving up.
Or if you don't change it, what you're giving up.
It is only one classification in the city that we are indicating that.
Yep.
Every other zoning classification, CX, RX, NX, and OP and other, and then of course RTH, they all allow townhomes by right still. So we're only looking to remove it from one zoning.
So they would have to come in and essentially just change the zoning. The only place this exists is up Highway 9.
Correct.
That's what I'm saying. This is going to be a very rare.
Right.
So if, that's what a variance is for, a rare situation where you see a benefit to something. So, I think I'd be fine with saying, hey, look, if it's in this one area and we'd like to put 8 townhomes in there, then.
Oh, they can ask for it.
You just wanted guidance to move it forward to council, correct?
Correct.
For first reading. So,
Initiation, actually.
Right, initiation. But, and we've got the comp plan coming up in the fall. We've also got the strategic plan coming up sooner.
Right.
And I think this is kind of a Band-Aid until we get to that
That's
point.
exactly what we were thinking.
I really like the solution. What we talked about in November, ensure that there's some variety and mix it out in a way of flexibility.
And the intention of this originally, you think, is that they thought the car dealerships would turn over, and so it's possible they're going to want to build towns. It's
I
just strange
believe
for me.
that they had a vision of Highway 9 becoming something else
Other than what we
currently
have.
is.
Okay. No, I think it worked.
Motion to move.
Second.
Discussion. Favor say aye. Opposed, state. Item number 3, approval of change of times of community development and transportation.
I believe this was, in fact, I know this was placed on the agenda at the request of Councilmember Palermo. We have a conflict with February the 27th because that is the award ceremony for Plan First Communities. So that basically means we get to go down, we're invited to come down to receive the award and then go over to the Capitol and have a picture with the new governor. It's basically the same time as committee meeting. Now, while staff could probably work around it because we don't have anything that's really urgent that we would have to put on that committee, or we can put it on the admin committee. But one of the things that they invited or encouraged that they wanted elected officials to perhaps come to the award ceremony. The last time when we received our original award, we had three council members that went down with us. Now, I will say that they invited the elected officials. They did not put a limit. Well, they did not put a limit on it, but the room where you do the award ceremony holds, what, 75 people. There's 18 communities. It's very tiny.
So I don't know how you fit 75 people in there myself.
I don't even think 75 people can get in there.
Stood the last
We
time.
can take a hint, Alice.
No, I'm just telling you that if everybody wants to go, that's fine, but it'd be like last time when we had to stand up.
I think we stood the whole time. It was very small.
I'll be out of town that day, so -1.
Okay.
But no, there was one community, I think they had about 10 people.
They had a lot of people.
They took up all the seats, so.
You need a motion.
Was there a proposed
Change the
time we
date.
were changing it to?
I believe he had said 5,
5 or 5:30?
Said 5.
5:30.
Same day?
same day.
Do you really think it's necessary to move the meeting? I mean, if you want to meet Brian Kemp, this is not a good time to do it because you don't
don't-
really meet.
No,
don't
what
meet him.
I mean, truthfully, you're not trying to discourage anybody. What they do is that they put you on the staff. At least Mayor, the last governor,
Yeah.
he comes out with his staff. They click, he goes back in.
Yep, that's all it is. One group after another, after another, after another. That's all it was.
We did it for the parks thing earlier last year.
Yeah.
But where's the problem? Same day, just different time.
Excuse me?
Same day,
Yes,
different time.
that's what the proposal is for a committee.
So move, to approve.
Motion approved by Councilmember Zapata.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Woolsey. Any further discussion, comments?
Right.
All in favor, say aye, raise your hand.
Don't care.
Okay, passed.
That's not a vote.
So we're at 5:30.
I voted okay,
February
but I just don't
27th,
really
28th.
I won't be here.
Yeah, I might not be able to make it at the new time, so that's fine.
Could have
Thank
kept
you,
it the way it was
Alice,
and
Jack.
just said Palermo.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Moving under transportation, item number 4, consideration of a proposed mini roundabout, a new monument sign, North Coleman Road and Lake Crest Road. Mr. Asenbrock.
Thank you, Mr. Palmer. Good morning, everybody. We have a lot of slides to go over with you. If you already know the story here, we can go real fast. I've invited our city traffic engineer, Scott Bruner, to go through the basics. But essentially, what we want to do is talk to you about where we've been with regard to the monument sign that's in the right-of-way and discussing options with the local residents and our proposal to put a mini roundabout here, and we would like your vote at the end of this discussion to go ahead and award a contract to an outside design consultant firm to go ahead and design this mini and put it together. So I'll turn over to Scott to give you some background.
All right, thank you, Steve. Good morning. Yeah, I won't spend too much time on the background. You already know it, but the two monument signs were actually in the right-of-way, and the northwest one was damaged. And, we are not going to allow them to put it back into the right-of-way, so we hopefully can incorporate it as part of this project. Here's the roundabout design at Lake Crest. It's a mini roundabout, and of course, we propose to have a designated crossing to the north at Thompson Place. And we also would like to incorporate golf cart crossing and path and a route, possibly on both sides of Coleman. Here's just a little closer up detail. We have a couple options where we could potentially put one or more monument signs. We would like them to be breakaway. The sign foam is a viable option. As we saw last time, they look almost identical to mortar and brick and stone. So the neighborhood is very interested in doing this. We did have a public information open house on Thursday night, December 13th, 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. It was fairly well attended. We had about 20 or so people at both projects. We also had the Woodstock and Coleman signal options on the same night at the same time. So letters were specifically given to everybody within 1,000 feet of the projects. I was on the website, social media. We had some people helping us in the neighborhood. We had project boards, video loop going, and of course staff was there to answer any questions. We had a pretty good handout and comment card that we handed out. We also made it available by email. The results were actually going into the holidays. They were about 85% yes. We did receive 4 kind of non-supporters, a cluster from one neighborhood southeast of the project the last hour, so that dropped the number down to 59%. Some of the reasons people liked the project was speed reduction, traffic calming effect on North Coleman, safety, pedestrian bicycle safety, improved ability to turn left onto North Coleman, and enhancement of the neighborhood character. Some of the main reason some of the people didn't support the project was that they preferred the intersection just to remain as is. And also most of those were people that did not have access to Lake Crest. There was also a common comment that they thought the money should go to a signal at Woodstock and Coleman, which of course was part of the same night. So that was kind of interesting as well. 79% believe that sign should go back, part of the project. A little bit mixed bag on the golf cart. I think there was a lot of people were undecided because they didn't. I think people who like golf carts probably voted yes. Those that don't like them probably voted no. But right now, that's enough support where we'd like to keep it in the project, at least take it to the neighborhood during design. Some of the things we've heard moving forward, it's the first mini roundabout, so the neighborhood definitely wants context, the design to actually reflect neighborhood context and aesthetic. They want it designed so it actually does improve safety and reduce speeds. They were interested in pedestrian bicycle safety, so they were very interested in the pedestrian and golf cart crossing to the north, which probably would be rectangular rapid flashing beacons. They wanted us to make sure large vehicles could turn properly, and again, there was some mixed opinions on the golf cart path. If the sign was to go in, I just want to be clear that the neighborhood group would be responsible for design, fabrication, and installation. We would identify a spot and facilitate a location of the signs to be made part of the project. But the city dollars will not actually be going to creating the monument signs. Also, people are interested in what's the mini roundabout, the center circle, going to look like. They've seen some examples in some urban areas that they were not too happy about. We'll work very closely with them on coming up with something they'd like. So the next steps are, right now we have a working cost estimate of $185,000. Consultant design services, $90,000. We expect that because of the neighborhood involvement, there will be some evolving of the design, is probably the best way to put it. We have some different ideas from different people there, but we're still proceeding with the basic design that you've seen. We'd like this to also proceed in tandem with the signal in North Coleman and Woodstock, kind of have a two-part project going on. And so today we're basically asking for a vote to authorize us to move forward with design and ultimately construction.
Doors open.
Couple questions. Is the design of the light at North Coleman, is that part of the process still? Because I know we've talked about different. Are we good with?
It's independent.
Okay.
They're doing it in-house.
Okay.
So it's just, I guess the message is that they're both on North Coleman. And so they really kind of work together. And the North Coleman, we're good. We've got all the guidance we need, and we've gotten all the public input, and they're working on that now. This is something that we need your input on as far as the design and the construction.
Okay. And then secondly, is this 185 plus 90, or is it the total cost 185?
The design contract, what we're asking to move forward is the 90. So we have a proposal for the 90. Once the design plans are finished, we would advertise for construction and get bids at that point, probably in the summer.
Okay. So we think it'll be an additional 185.
We are directing our engineer to keep this under $200,000 for construction.
The 3 houses, I believe, that last the rivers and the 3 around that I drove by yesterday and saw the markers out. Where do they stand on this?
The Northwest resident, very much in favor, actually was one of the people working with us in support of the project. Southwest neighbor, totally on board, loves it. East neighbor, we hear, we have not talked to them directly, but is very, very much in favor of it. And we might have a little bit of right-of-way acquisition there and adjustment to their driveway. But we were hoping they would be at the public, but they were not. But other neighbors told us that they were very much in favor. So it's actually unusual. We've got the 3 most impacted that are favorable or highly favorable.
Yeah.
Any roundabout look something like the ones on Sargent Road in Alpharetta? Is that
Well, better, a lot better.
Size-wise.
Yeah, about that, maybe. Yes.
Yeah. The nice part about this is that Lake Crest, surprisingly, looks like it's made to have a gate, multiple entries. It's over 70 feet wide right away. It gives us more to work with than a typical intersection.
The other thing that I'd like to add about this is just sort of thinking about how the gateway has evolved. I guess as we mature in these career fields, it's clear to me now we have a story to tell here, and it's actually a really good story. And we go out and we engage with the citizens, and at that moment in time, we get largely support. And then as time goes on, things change. People move, people forget, and then, maybe 6 months from now, there's going to be all this opposition to this thing. Why? Because they don't remember the story, and because it just takes a long time to get the design contract, and nothing is shown with the design. I guess the thing is that public opinion is sort of it moves. It's cyclical, yeah. And so, from the staff standpoint, what we'd like to emphasize is this is a great story. This is a great solution to a fairly complex problem. And now we have public support. Our recommendation is get this thing done while there's still that public support. We'd like to have this done by the end of the year. Okay? I mean, there's really no reason why we can't survey it, design it, get a construction contractor out there and get this thing done. So that's our recommendation as we move with all due haste. Yes, sir.
So, yeah, couple of things. I was analyzing the data presented, and when you talk about public support, I see here that you receive only 17 comments. So my question is how representative it is of the area. Only 17 comments.
No, it's a 1,000-foot radius, so I mean, it's just basically the.
So then my next question, sorry, but my next question is, on the land of lakes, any HOA?
No.
How many people out of the 17 came from the land of lakes? I want to see more, crunching more these data that you collected.
I can say, actually, that was a little bit of a concern with us, and figured that somebody would notice all data points in the comments. All of the positives were from the Lake Crest, Land Lakes. There was a lot of people that simply did not attend because they were comfortable with the project. One of the non-supporters was actually was about a mile away. So I can't, we can't force people to sign the comment card, but our belief is that the majority of the larger group, Land Lakes, is supportive.
Okay, and then moving forward on this data analysis you presented here today, the main reason for the runabout says speed reduction, traffic calming.
Which is the biggest complaint we received.
Right, 18.2%. So my question here is, which other options our Department of Transportation has to address the speed reduction, traffic calming issue?
None.
Okay. Then going back to people who didn't support this, was 7 comments out of 17. They claim that the project is going to change the character of preferred intersection to remain as is. So definitely it's going to change the character of the neighborhood and the area. So what about this?
So that's why we're working with them on the monument signs. There probably can be some landscaping. There can be some issues like the texture.
I'm not referring to the monument. Monument, you mean the sign? No, I'm talking about the runabout is going to change the character of the area.
So we'll work with the
sign.
citizens.
I'm not concerned about the sign.
What are you concerned about?
Runabout.
What specifically?
So said, changing the character of the area and what the residents of the area have to say about that.
I think we kind of get this when we do a signalization project, that people who, especially on the side streets where the signalization serves them or improves their situation, are in favor of. People that live a quarter mile away and now they have a new signal, they have to stop in their commute, not so much in favor of it. I think a little bit of that happens here is that people who are not directly, there's an opinion that is an encumbrance to their commute. And if you're one of the people that are doing 40 or 45 miles per hour in Coleman, yes.
So to answer Councilman Zapata's questions a little bit, my perspective, I grew up in Land Lakes on Lake Charles Drive or Lake Charles Way. My parents still live on Lake Charles Way. My sister lives in the neighborhood. I live in the neighborhood next to it. When we had a carriage house earlier there this year, the whole neighborhood came out. This has been widely spread throughout the neighborhood. I have not had one person contact me about this directly. And it's a very active neighborhood with people that, and so my question about the 3 people whose yards would be directly impacted, growing up there, North Coleman has been a sore spot for many years of something needs to be done to North Coleman and specifically that intersection. So as somebody who's lived this their whole life, I see this as no concern, and living there and having family that lives there, I honestly, when you say all the positive comments and no negative comments came from it within inside Land Lakes, that's a strong voice of support for this project. So I to support moving it forward.
Second.
Motion.
Yes.
Motion by Councilman, second by Rohr. Any further discussion?
I just wanted to make one comment about the mini roundabout. I grew up in a very rural area that's seen a lot of growth over the past 20 years, and one of the ways that they've kind of dealt with that growth is putting in some mini roundabouts. And biking and driving on those roads, it really helps preserve the character much more than doing a big intersection or a
Right.
traffic light. I think it's a conclusion in this.
And as we get the design, as we get the concept, we'll go back out to the public, and there's lots of little, in order to make sure that the character is preserved, there may be some landscaping, there may be there's a lot of little architectural details that we can incorporate into it, as long as it's not super expensive. I mean, we don't want to gold plate this, obviously, but we're thinking that we can absolutely get the local residents to coalesce around this and to make it sort of their mark, their brand, their sense of place. So yeah, we will work with them. And because it's the first one, it's super important for us to get it right. So we'll work with them on that. And then we think it'll be popular and other people would want it. So we just got to get this first one in.
Budget, one quick question. Budget-wise, is this in the budget, or is this something we'll have to get?
This is considered being taken from the pedestrian safety speed management account, both for the design contract we're awarding, and then we intend on using the same source for construction.
Okay, great.
Question? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed?
Thank you.
Item number 5, consideration to award a contract to Pawnee. Consideration to award a contract to Pawnee Company for Roswell's bicycle and pedestrian master plan.
Thank you, Gary. So this is very exciting to us. We've been anxious to get this underway for a long time, and I'm going to turn it over to Dave to give you the details.
Well, good morning. As Steve said, we are really excited to get our bike ped master plan off the ground. And it's been on our wish list for many years, so we're glad it's finally moving forward. And one of the big parts of that is to secure a consultant to do that. One of the reasons we're pursuing it is our bicycle-friendly community designation. We're at the bronze level. One of the key points that they pointed out was we really need a bike ped plan. A lot of cities in the metro Atlanta area have them, so we really want to play catch up and get that underway. We have about $200,000 budget for it. We're actually going to try to contract it for approximately $150,000, and we have an extra $50,000 for leeway, or if the council directs us to take a deeper dive on a certain topic within the plan, or any other things that may come up. So we have some latitude, some extra things if needed. We did a selection committee over the fall months. We had members from both transportation and rec and parks, since the bike ped plan will impact parks somewhat. And we came with the initial rating from the 3-member panel and came to the selection of Pond and Company. We went a little further and had in-person interviews, had each of the firms come in just to see if there were any things we missed or we wanted to take a deeper dive on that. And we ended up still being Pond and Company as the select or preferred candidate. So we'd like to answer any questions and get a motion to move this to council.
Floor is open.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion. Favor say aye.
Great. Thank you.
Item number 6, consideration to award construction contract, well, construction for the sidewalk and Hurst Road.
Okay, so yeah, I don't know where they came up with the name for their. Hopefully, that's not indicative of their project. But I'll turn this.
We worked with them before.
Yeah, we have not actually, but they have good references. So I'll let Rob present this one.
Thank you, Steve. Believe it or not, this project has been on our radar for about 3 or 4 years now. This is a extension of the sidewalk that we're constructing right now on Hardscrabble Road, extending it past Etris, bringing it past Crabapple and up to Rucker.
So this is Hardscrabble here. This is Crabapple, and our Hardscrabble Green Loop project currently ends right here at the intersection of Etris and Hardscrabble.
When we initially started design, this gap was a very, very consistent request from residents. It scored very well. About 3 or 4 years ago, we started the in-house design process. Our engineering staff designed it. Our right-of-way acquisition staff acquired the right-of-way from this parcel here. Was the only parcel we impacted.
Church.
Yeah, Yes. And we received 10 bids. We were very happy to receive 10 bids on a sidewalk project. We are recommending awarding the contract today.
Floor is open.
Sir.
So this sidewalk connecting from the ends, more sidewalk, or is just a independent section of sidewalk?
No, it connects on both sides. So on the south side, it's connect both onto Etris, which has sidewalks, and our hard travel green loop, which is a complete street now. And then going up here to Rucker, there's sidewalks up there and going on up to House Road.
So we're just missing, they were missing this section of sidewalk only.
Correct.
We connect two sidewalks.
Oh, it lengthens our network quite a bit.
It's filling an existing gap.
Total cost?
The construction award is $268,485.85.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Do the next one.
Any further discussion? Favor say aye.
Thank you.
Consideration to use transportation special purpose local option sales tax funds for the right-of-way acquisition of the driveway 675 Mimosa Boulevard. Steve.
Thank you, Gary. So this is part of the Oxbow project. Actually, the next two are. I'll let Rob present this one. It's really easy. It's just that it exceeds our funding authorization, and that's why we needed to bring it to you. So.
Exactly what Steve just said. The reason this is coming to you is because it exceeds the $50,000. If you refer to packet page 66, you authorize us to spend $50,000 to close 10 parcels. This is the last parcel to close, and we have exceeded that $50,000. We are bringing this to committee and then forward to council.
So it's this property here on Mimosa. It's funny. So I don't know, y'all may not realize this, but here's a house, and it looks to the west on Mimosa, but it doesn't have access to Mimosa. Its driveway is off of State Route 9. So we had to work through GDOT on the whole driveway access thing because, as you know, visualizing the new intersection is south of the existing hardware store, and so there's some tapers and some things. Anyway, we resolved it, and you had given us authorization to bundle all the right-of-way, and this is kind of the last element.
How much over the 50,000 is this?
Clyde can correct me if I'm wrong. My understanding is that the 9 parcels, 9 of the 10 reached that $50,000. So this is $48,000 just for this parcel, and that's the delta that we're asking for.
And it's funded with T-SPLOST. It's just that you had given us that ceiling, and we're going to exceed that ceiling.
The wording in the resolution says $1,000, not to exceed $1,000. It's not really specific as one or all 10, but negotiations with these folks involved trying to determine where the other access might be. And if we had to close the right of way on 9 existing, it would cost an additional $50,000. Right. So we had to clarify from GDOT that it would not require closing that right away. So we were able to get it back.
Which kind of surprised us.
So I met with that lady some time ago, and she had requested access through the parking lot and all kinds. Is she happy with this resolution?
They are happy with this. I got an email yesterday that they're happy with the current proposal. The church declined the access through their parking lot. Not only did leadership from the church decline, but the whole church voted on their resolutions, and they all declined. Sorry to say, but
you go to church?
Not a church anymore. Different church. But and we don't have the ability to force them to do the access to that area. But what that did, when we originally got the one-way pair going through there, we had to get an easement from these folks, and in that easement, we said that they have the right to review the final plans. That's where this came up, that they wanted this other access. And we asked that process with the church to see if they were interested. Died. We asked the folks to the south next. That died. So we were left with only one option, which is provide an access on Mimosa. Took their 1 yard away, and they were hesitant about that.
This has been a really hard situation because it's just kind of a strange the way, we would like to close that driveway on 9, and Clyde's been working with them for a year.
Well, from the beginning.
Yeah.
These were the first people we acquired, now they're
Right.
the last.
Yeah,
With this process, we're done with all the right of way on Oxbow.
I'd like to say that possibly after Oxbow's built and everybody sort of sees what the new alignment is, maybe we could take another run at this and get the church to understand how one driveway off their parking lot really wouldn't be that much of an inconvenience. I think right now there's just too much going on for them to really get that. This is great for our project. It's great for them, and GDOT is okay with it. So that's really the new news here.
Yeah, I know that lady's in a very tough spot. If this fits, if this works, if they're happy, then I'd support it. I don't know if there's any other comment. If not, I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion approved by Councilmember Brewer.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Judy. Further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Item number 8, consideration of a temporary lease of and relocation of the structure at 30 Pleasant Hill Street. Steve.
The mayor brought this, that was a great job, I thought, by the way, Mayor, last Friday at your speech on the state of the city. And I thought the storyline about Doc's Cafe was powerful, and people came up to me and said they had no idea. And so it's kind of interesting that now we are actually in the point of what we had, based on your guidance, we had sort of paused our demo of this and looked at other options, and the other options were a lot of work. I think what Clyde's about to tell you now is a great solution, both temporary and long term.
The idea originally with the Oxford Cafe was just to pick it up, move it out completely out of town. Didn't realize that it had historic relevance to the community, and then when we did realize that, we paused the project. So the problem became, what do we do with this structure that we want to keep? We're going to fill that site. The site's going to be under 16 feet of fill on the west side and about 5 feet of fill on the east side, so it can't stay. But the church owns the property east, has indicated that we can temporarily locate it on that property, 30 Pleasant Hill, right across the street. Makes the move relatively simple, and it gives it a place where it can be watched and procured for a whole year. Originally wanted a whole lot of money for that lease, and negotiated down to if we'll demolish the house, cost that the first year of, and then we'll wait and see on how things working out. Not really that they're going to not lease. What they want to do is make sure that it can't go someplace else after the road and everything gets worked out. We had originally looked at putting it up next to where the gas station is up on the other side, but there's some issues with how that process may take longer than they want to take. By locating in this location, just the piece of the property, they can take care of it. They can start doing the restoration of the structure and the inside of the structure and make it ready for the display, tell the story of Doc's Cafe and its relevance to the city, eventually be a part of a bigger thing. So it's a straightforward lease. 1 year is the documentation of the demolition, and the next couple of years it's a 3-year renewable, subject to our, you look at it one step at a time, and we don't know where the additional money is going to come from those other years. It's just going to be something we're going to have to work out over time.
So, and I can add to the story a little bit. We've formed a committee. It's not in City Hall committee, but committee of several churches, folks in Groveway. And we're going to start a capital campaign for improvements and then also maintenance. So at this point, we really don't know who's in charge. But we know we have to save the structure, and we need time for the capital campaign and to figure out, is Pleasant Hill Church going to own Doc's Cafe? Is the city going to own it? Do we use that as a trailhead for the rest of Oxbow Road? We've got a lot of opportunities, but right now we just need to get it moved so we can start our capital campaign, figure out who's on first, and then we can come back with updates.
How much are you asking for?
$16,000 to demolish the other structure. We need a spot for the building to go, so it's an eligible project under the clearance.
So there's no cost to the lease then?
No, that is the cost. The demolition cost.
Got it. Okay, you're exchanging one.
Yep.
for the other.
Yes.
And then it'll be there temporarily until,
I think that's actually a great location for it, depending on, Pleasant Hill Baptist Church has a lot of, I think they're sort of master planning their whole campus, if you will, and depending on how this all fits in, that's actually a very good candidate location for it to go, whether it stays there permanently, it's
and currently the city has the title on the home?
Yes, we do. We already
Motion
have a
to
lease for the
approve.
driveway.
Motion to approve. Brainer here.
Second. Oops.
Second by Mayor Henry. Discussion. All in favor, say aye. Opposed?
thank you.
Item number 9. Discussion regarding metered parking spaces and rideshare services on Canton Street and Elizabeth Way.
Thank you, Gary. So we've talked about this now for a while. It's really sort of a discussion item. We have a lot of slides. Mohammed has been in contact with Park Mobile and is prepared to discuss this with you. Dan Skowski has actually, as the Public Works Director, has more experience than we do after his experience with the East Alley. But we're ready to receive some more guidance on this item from you. I'll let Mohammed maybe do a quick little set the table.
Yes, sure. So this was presented to you back in November committee meeting. So we shared what our neighboring cities are doing. You know, some of like Alpharetta, Sandy Springs, and Marietta. One common thing we saw was the first couple of hours were offered free at City of Atlanta. These are all the same slides as the November committee. So what we presented was, you know, just a couple different options for kiosk, and we heard at the November committee that preference would be to have less or no kiosk. And then we're talking about the parking, basically the southern end of Canton Street and along Elizabeth Way. And so we also talked about some circulation around the somehow connected all park in the Canton Street area. So the trolley that already runs Friday and Saturday, these are the stops. And these were just some ideas, you know, having some golf cart connection, a golf cart route goes along Highway 9 on Canton Street, Norcross, come down towards the City Hall campus and just circulate. And this is another idea for some trail connections on the Smith Plantation and the City Hall property. In December, we met with the Park Mobile vendor, and I just want to go over my notes on what we heard from him. So what they offer is, of course, a mobile app. You know, using the app, you could pay by credit card and go to kiosk or so you could either go to a kiosk and pay, or you just pay by using your app. So what they offer is you could just have some signs and you pay by your app. If you are a non-cell phone user, you know, you could just still call a number, provide your credit card information, and pay for the park. They have all kinds of different options. We just gotta how we want to do it. So if we don't want any kiosk, that is an option. They also mentioned, you know, like City of Miami Beach, they offer a discounted rate for the residents. So there is a way to somehow register the city residents, and they pay, you know, less or no charge for parking. That is an option. And that's basically all we heard from the Park Mobile company. So I guess a couple different things we still wanted to do is we're going to have some more coordination with Public Works to know how the city is handling the current paid parking on the East Alley project, and then talk about procurement finance.
Floor's open.
Okay, so I asked to have this put back on because I think it's really important, and and because of Public Works involvement in East Alley and us securing the first kiosk. I told Sean I would help him with this, even though it sits in transportation. I think the three most important things right now are the metering of Elizabeth and Canton, the Hawk signal, and then also looking at possible ride share drop-offs, pickups that the ride share, if you go down on a Friday or Saturday night, there's cars in the road driving around in circles and this, that, and the other. And so I did some research in Fort Lauderdale, a small town in Michigan that's got a good model. There's a bunch of cities, if you just Google ride share pickups, and they how they do it. And then you can go into Uber and Lyft and the ride share. They will then point people via the app to where to pick these up to get cars out of the way. So I think that could help us in a way, but that would then take us to, we'd have to either take a few parking spaces out for them to pick up, or, you know, like the area in front of where the motorcycles are on the other side, right next to Provisions, right in behind Go With The Flow.
Sure, so it could be on Canton Street here, or it could be on East Alley here.
So I think we should look at what are the best areas around that we could have rideshare pickups.
Sure.
And then the metering of Canton and Elizabeth, I think we need to decide, all right, are we going to do the kiosk model that we have right now in East Alley? Or are we going to go to a Park Mobile model? And then what are we doing with enforcement? And I think that's the big key here is are we going to run enforcement like we are right now in East Alley, see how it goes and then switch? Or are we going to go ahead and jump into something? Because, I mean, when you get into enforcement, that's a whole different ball of wax. So I think it's really important and to really get moving on these as soon as possible to figure out, all right, how do we get this done sooner rather than later? Because it was November, so we need to get.
Could I address the enforcement thing? Just a loose discussion with other public works directors around the area was, if you're in for a penny, you're in for a pound. They're saying don't start and then have this backlash and then start enforcing it. That you should say right up front that if we're going to have this parking, we're going to have enforcement, that we're not kidding, that we're committed to this system. And it takes a while to get used to it. Decatur went through the same thing, that they didn't have it, and then they got metered parking, and there was some growing pains, and now it's the culture. So you're basically, whenever you're changing the culture, there's going to be some pain, but our recommendation would be that we start enforcement right away as part of it, but that's your call.
Sure. So I don't think we can move fast enough to get something going here. If we can, again, if we increase the throughput on those spots, I think it's a big deal for the merchants, the turnover on those spots. If you go to the chart where you had the kiosks, a second.
Beginning.
Oh, at the beginning?
That one.
Okay.
Park Mobile and kiosks are not exclusive of each other, and in fact, most places will have a kiosk, and then most of their regulars wind up using Park Mobile. And so, if you put the kiosk right there on the corner,
possibly here,
right about there, somewhere in that little area, that gives people without cell phone access to do it. But I think what you'll find is that very quickly people jump on Park Mobile because it's just darn easy.
It is.
It's a great app. It works very, very well. I've used it a number of places, both here and outside of here. It's the market, the market leader. I think they get 30 cents a round, something like that, and it's an addition to your fee. So technically, you're not really paying anything for it. So city. So I think that's great. I'm also a big proponent of the Hawk signal. Quicker we can get that together with a nice pathway, I think you'll actually see people, feeling positive about parking over.
So on that, we have a consultant doing a study, the Straight Road 9 connectivity study. As part of that, they're gonna talk to GDOT to get some initial input. But they're still working, and I think we are scheduled to bring that back February coming up.
But again, I don't think you can move fast enough to get that done.
The results of that study will be in February?
February committee, I believe, yes.
And they'll tell us whether GDOT is favorable or not to the beacon or whatever. The only thing, can I just make one comment on the, so just there, if we were to go with, say, the single kiosk here, we would have to put up some signs to alert people. And signage is a big testy issue with the people down here, so they would have to add some small amount of signs to let people know when they're parking here to direct them in this area.
Yeah, Park Mobile's gonna want to do that also.
Okay, just right? Full disclosure. I mean,
Park Mobile signs.
But you have to put signs anywhere to let people know that they have to pay for the spot. Right?
Yes, sir.
So you can share the same sign, say where the location is, if they want to go.
Sure. The reason we put this graphic up was because the current thinking was that you put kiosks so that nobody has to cross a street in order to go to the thing. I mean, that could be evolving, but that was sort of the state of the practice for a long time. But if we can slice this however you like. I just want to make sure you understand that there's some other things that go with it.
And also still people have option for free parking nearby.
Sure.
So it's not we're forcing them to pay.
This is like the
you want to just
get people turning. Technically, what you're trying to do is move them out to to those outer free parking bands so that these turn for the merchant.
Right. And what about are we giving a break for disabled parking or some spots for disabled parking so they cannot pay or they don't want to pay, but also they cannot walk from City Hall parking?
We have handicap spaces there now. In most of the time, handicap spaces are paid for just like regular spaces. They just have a better access. So that's your call.
Do we want to contemplate give a break to disabled
people game the system with handicap parking? I know that there's a lot of discussion about people get the little hangers for their window and because their grandmother has it and then they use it and just saying.
Buy them online.
Yeah.
Really? Where?
It's gonna be a big cane you got to carry in your car.
Well, that is just a moral issue.
Yes, sir.
But different to not give the option just because someone might abuse the system.
It's your call.
Using the system is out of our control.
Is there any requirements that on-street parking have handicap spaces?
We are. We could talk to Jackie about that, but technically, when you have a business and the business has parking, there are national standards for how many of those spaces are identified as mobility impaired. This is a little bit different because it's sort of a generic. I mean, there's no assigned parking here. It's kind of like public parking, so we could work with community development.
Clyde would probably know this number offhand. It's either one handicap space per 25 or one per 50. I am pretty confident just looking at it that if we drew the boundary of Elizabeth Way and Canton south of Elizabeth, that the number of handicaps there meets the industry standard.
Got in the book, Rob was right, 1 per 25. So if you have 25 spaces in a row, you're using it for the businesses, then yes. And you can just have to follow the ADA requirements.
So that's for on-street parking?
Yeah, that's for all.
That's for parking in general.
For accessible for ADA.
Just looking at the aerial offhand, I can see 3 immediately. 1 where my arrow is, 2 where my arrow is, 3. There's at least 3, and I'm sure there's not 75 parking spots there.
Go ahead.
Here's a crazy thought for y'all. Those spaces that are in front of the gallery, with three of them right
Here
there.
on the
Right.
western side?
Right. If those were the handicap spots, not inside the scope of the ones make paid, might pick up the three paid spots. Plus, they're closer to where people would be going.
Sure. Where we identify that parking is largely our call.
So
We just need to
see what I'm
provide
talking
it.
about, right?
Yes, sir. We can move the handicap
So if you
spaces.
put those three as handicap, you can now turn the other ones potentially into.
You could also then put one of those a rideshare spot for, I mean, test out the rideshare. A lot of these places test the rideshare spot 6 months, see the locations, if they work, this, that, and the other. So then you could have handicap and rideshare right out in front.
I don't remember right off the top of my head, but there may be, we'll have to do some research. There may be a requirement that the handicap spot has to have a buffer on both sides. I don't know that
It's gonna be van.
I think so, and on both sides. So I don't think the street actually qualifies, so I don't know that we could actually do that.
I have two questions. One, maybe this is for Dan, but I get calls all the time about the kiosk in the East Alley. Is it working, and are we enforcing? Are we making any money on it? How's that going?
Yes.
Okay. Working meaning the lights are on, but in terms of is the model working? Are there challenges?
I would say yes, worked pretty well. We've had a few technical issues, but as far as main objective of safe park, once we began with our warning notices, which started about a month ago, parking lot opened up and it's churning with people short-term basis during the day especially. We also have a video feed back here so we can see when the lot's full, compare with the number of people who are logged in the system. If there's a bunch of extra people, then Jim or our folks go over and issue these. We typically issue about 10 or so of those a week now. We don't have a lot of repeat vendors, so it's serving its purpose of moving those spaces are available for a couple hours for free today.
I guess my question would be about the enforcement, and is that something that your folks are doing, or is it something we need to talk to the police department about, or?
Yeah, I have a badge. No,
I was just curious who's actually doing it and who's not.
Rita.
How are we gonna do it going forward?
At this point, I would defer to Bob Halsey, who I was going to quote at this moment, but my favorite line he uses is, "Our goal is to encourage compliance, not to enforce." Bob, do you?
Well, did not mechanism of this, they encourage compliance without having a, so it's working and it'll work, won't work long. Going to have ordinance establish paid parking part of the city. And as part of that, I would envision that it would authorize you to establish parking by resolution, so you can change them. And then established by resolution. Well, the ordinance has to mechanism. I would suggest that a civil fine. Well, right now, our general penalty is monthly jail, $1,000. That's kind of much for. You want to say harsh. $15 is a fine if you don't pay. 30, and then we can designate by resolution, designate enforcing part-time. Dan, you better or designate an officer for that. Other thing, parking. I'm not sure, we have to check with finance. Got to go through the process, because I'm sure there are other people and Craig about get all this stuff out. So if that's something you want to, that process.
So, on the upper square, the spaces right on the back behind the gazebo, are those ours as well on the street there?
Square. Where's
The historic square.
Square.
Oh, the square.
Square.
North,
Um,
north boundary of the square.
Now that we have the heart
Park
of
Square,
Roswell.
the road, Park Square?
Yes.
Those are public parking
Okay,
spaces.
so as Super Jenny and that starts to turn again, we're gonna
Okay.
probably have spots up there is that we need to move people in and out of. So I think this is not a problem. This is something that we're going to continue to see as we redevelop these spots up and along the corridor. So if we can get it right here, we can then start moving that direction. So it's really important to start.
So second question I had was that.
Sorry.
That was rude. Second question is the rideshare thing, where you put that, an operational decision where we could just tell you guys, we think there's a need for a rideshare spot and go do it? I personally think that is long overdue somewhere on Canton Street.
We agree. We get a lot of complaints about people that the Uber drivers will just park in the middle of Elizabeth Way basically during basically Friday and Saturday nights, and that's irritating to a lot of the people. So what I believe, Gary, that is an operational decision. I mean, if the council were to give us guidance that they want to do that, what we could do is work with the Merchants Association and just find a place and try it out. I mean, it's in the right of way, or if it was on East Alley. I mean, like so many things, everybody's going to love the concept, but they don't want it in front of their front door. And then, of course, it's going to. I don't know where it's going to land, but we could make a sign that says, say, after 5 o'clock, these spots are reserved for rideshare, and then get the app to.
It's the two on Canton where the motorcycle and the.
We could do that today. I mean,
or
that's
it's
easy.
on in my opinion, East Alley, right on the left side there.
Sure.
I mean, that seems like the obvious place. It's exposed. It's easy.
So what about the free parking right next to the fire station?
Free parking next to the
Green Street lot.
The Green Street lot.
Yep, have they are designated for the Ubers or Lyft?
It kind of needs to be in the middle of everything.
How far? 2 blocks, 3 blocks, 10
mean,
blocks?
Far to walk.
And hard to find.
Yeah, Uber's going to want to pick you up right in front of the restaurant. That's what they want to do. So you just walk out and go in there. But the state of the practice right now is that if it's just off to the side, if you designate an area, hotels, airports, I mean they're creating an area for the rideshare that it's still convenient. If you move it too far away, it will break down the whole convenience of the system.
So would be knowing how many feet will be this parking from Canton Street.
East Alley would be the best.
I think so too.
Is it possible to get any information from Uber or Lyft about number of time and errors, that thing?
We could reach out and see what if they
Dave,
have
you've
any
had
data.
experience with that, haven't you? Working with well, you work with Google Maps, I guess. So and there's no requirement. I mean, we can't force them to do that. It's more like just that
I was looking
guides
for
them.
information.
Is there
Where
data?
are they?
Right,
Just
yeah.
data, where are they?
We'll try and get that.
Based on my experience, we may not be able to get their data, but they have been very willing to work with other cities around us and use whatever the city designates as the rideshare area. The most familiar example I'm aware of is the Braves Stadium. Cobb County designated a block, kind of 2 blocks away from the stadium, kind of off the most heavily traveled area as the rideshare area. Everybody knows where it is. All of the Uber Lyft cars all go directly there. When you use your app, it tells you to walk directly there.
Same with the airport.
It's very easy.
The code of
I
ordinances,
totally can tell you exactly where to put it, but I'm sure they've got.
Let's talk about that for a second. Is there a way that we can pull that data? We have the ability to contact Lyft and Uber to get that, maybe get their database?
I mean, we could reach out and see if that's an option.
Let's do that.
They have data.
That's a
that
good
they
idea.
can share.
All right.
I made a note.
If that's available, it obviously would help. Otherwise, I don't think we need to over-engineer it. I think we need to give it a shot somewhere and see what happens.
Bob, you good?
Code of ordinances already authorizes the transportation director in conjunction with the police chief designate parking for areas. So you all have the operational authority to do whatever you need to do to establish rideshare areas.
Okay. Thank you.
And then one more question I had is we have a funding mechanism for where the fees for parking are going to go. I know that that's dicey.
We have a funding mechanism to put them in an account, and Ryan administers that account. I don't have that account at the moment. The system has account this morning. It's not a lot of money but he is keeping it in a separate account thing.
But that's probably something we need to be thinking about.
Well, so the kiosk costs about $9,000 plus $60 a month if we use the national account. So, whatever we're doing probably will go to purchase our next machine or pay for this machine.
I don't think it's a money making.
Yeah, no, it's not. It's definitely not money making.
But it's we just need to make sure.
Yeah. Can I make a comment? So when I was a consultant for several years, I had the ability to work with other cities, and it was a wonderful broadening experience. One thing that I noticed is that all the cities around Atlanta use their DDAs to maintain their parking. So you authorize the DDA, we set up these systems, the DDA then does the kiosk, does the enforcement, gets the money, recycles it, pays for the enforcement, and it's a pretty interesting business model because it's pretty self-sufficient for them. And then they generate the money and they do, that's basically just part of their charter. So I think as this looks like it's about to evolve, you may want to consider that model or something like that.
Yep.
Don't get what you needed.
I think we've gotten all the guidance we need unless you want to. I'm sensing that the majority of the council wants to designate part of the public right of way for rideshare pickup and drop off. So unless we need a motion to do that, I think I've got all the guidance I need, and we'll probably take those two in front of Go With The Flow and change those from motorcycle and pickup delivery to rideshare and just see how that goes. We'll also work with the Merchants Association to see if we can expand that. And then as we move forward, what is, I guess we do need guidance on, do we need to put paid parking out as a procurement issue?
Ordinance.
Not until we need, y'all want us to draft an ordinance?
Right.
Start working on that, bring it back next.
Because Park Mobile would be a sole source, right? And we need.
Well, we'd have to talk with Greg about that.
Yes.
Dan's got some.
Just I'd suggest Park Mobile's pretty dominant in this marketplace. It's possible they have a national procurement contract, what we're able to use for Parkion and the kiosks in the first place. Or
if we can piggyback.
another one.
So he said that there is some national contract they have when he called me, and I said, that some way to work on that.
So Ryan and Bob would need to review that contract, make sure it's applicable, meets our procurement regulations, I guess, just to make sure we're.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you're hearing feels like we're ready to kind of push this forward.
All right.
So, however we can.
We'll work on an ordinance and bring it back to the next.
Are we able to contemplate the handicap spots?
Yeah.
And,
maybe we could sign them differently to make them free.
and they will be right.
Yeah. So I guess I'd like to see by next committee draft the ordinance and then progress on the Park Mobile model. What challenges do we have with procurement, and if there aren't any, what's it going to look like? So we can maybe have some go to council.
And we'll go ahead and initiate the rideshare spots now.
And would those rideshare spots be after a certain time in the day? Because again, I don't know. I mean, in the like on the weekend, you have 15 motorcycles sitting in that spot.
That's
there
true.
Because it's a really nice weekend and people want to ride their motorcycles around. At night, you're not really seeing motorcycles. We can have that conversation with Uber, Lyft, the ride-sharing companies. I'm not sure if
coding that onto the app, they have that ability to, within time allotments of the day, send people directly to one area versus.
Yeah, I'll send y'all an article I read last night on the city in Michigan that did this. They're smaller, I think there's 60,000 people, but it's from 5 till 5 a.m. 5 in the evening to 5 a.m.
I think it's important for us to work with the merchants.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
Yeah,
see what
I
they
just
like.
don't want to.
So we'll work with like Steve Stroud, Gary.
HRBA.
HRBA.
We can keep the location of those spots flexible for now. We can Elizabeth, Valley, wherever would be what the better spot is, advertise it.
We'll work with the local businesses and merchants.
Thank you. That'd be good. Good?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? We're adjourned. Dan.